Right, so once again, good afternoon, and thank you for joining another webinar on unleashing the power of your meetings, transform them into thinking environments. To all our peers and international partners who have joined us again, welcome back, thank you. And to all the new faces as well who are joining us today, we appreciate the support. So just a few housekeeping notes from our side, if we can. Let's try and keep our microphones muted as much as we can. We're happy to also have the cameras on, which is not an issue. We will go through the running procedure of the day, which will be, we'll do a Q&A session right at the end of the webinar. So at least everybody has got an opportunity to ask some questions. But at the same time, whilst Angela is going through the delivery, if you have a pressing point, or if you have a pressing question, please just use the chat box. We'll be monitoring that as well. So we'll be able to pick that up and Angela will get the opportunity to answer them at the end of, towards the end of the Q&A session. So feel free to add as much information there as you can. All right. Now, we're going to start officially. So what we're going to do is, Angela, if you'd like to take over with the slides, that would be great.
Sure thing. There we go.
So who are we? Seriously, we focus on understanding organizations, training needs, and delivering bespoke solutions. Our tailor-made approach means that we work with you at every step to create a bespoke training course that meets your specific objectives and learning requirements for the group. We're a trusted supplier to many His Majesty's government departments and public agencies, for example, Ministry of Defence, as well as NHS. Our most popular series of courses include leadership and management, accountability and governance, as well as personal development. As we continue with the webinar, I'm going to introduce my colleague now, Angela Blacklaw, who's the star of the show, who's the one who's going to be delivering the lovely webinar. So Angela, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Tendai. So welcome everybody. It's very gratifying to see so many people here interested in transforming meetings. I'm Angela. I was a civil servant for 25 years. This is your moment to say, surely not, and how, doesn't she look young, and how could she have done that? So I've had my share of meetings, good, bad, ugly, and so on. And when I left the civil service, went freelance as leadership development person, I was kind of determined to think, what can we do? Not just to make leaders effective or make teams work well or make people associate. What can we do to make leaders create environments in meetings where people can do their very best thinking rather than just things that we have to survive and get through and cope with, even though they're not at our best. Tendai, are you planning on asking me some questions, or shall I just sort of carry on myself? What's your preference here? You're muted, Tendai.
Thank you. No, I was just saying, Angela, from now on, I think it's all you. I'm happy to support you in the background, but yeah, if we can just carry on, that'd be great.
Okay, fine. So let's think then about the problem with having so many meetings. As managers, as leaders, we spend so much of our time attending meetings and mostly chairing meetings, but it doesn't follow that these meetings are a good use of our time, which means that we don't achieve as much as we could, and those around us don't as well. So I'm going to ask the question, what stops so many of the meetings you lead from being effective, do you think? If you wouldn't mind, pop something in chat just now. Emily, I wish I knew how to do that. I'm going to mute myself for a second, so at least you don't hear it from me. So can I invite you, what is it that stops meetings being as effective as you would want them to be? So seeing some different things here. No clear purpose, no agenda, agendas, objective, lack of preparation, yet not enough time. That's an interesting one. I'll come back to that. Wafflers, Sarah, I have a feeling that in my life I have been one of those wafflers on various occasions. No time for questions, people not prepared, lack of engagement, too long. There you go, we've got not enough time, we've got too long. Oh, hidden agenda, interesting there. Just too many of them. Yeah, we might have an agenda, but do we stick to it? Are we keeping to time? Chit chat. Yeah, that's it's a double-edged sword, that one, Amber. We need to be human beings to each other, but if we're not focused, it's a problem. Going on too long, poor sharing. Yeah, thank you, folks. Lots and lots of answers here.
That was another interesting one for you, Angela. Sorry,
What's that?
which
Yeah.
hybrid meetings, because I think we've got pretty much almost a similar answer, but that's the most unique one that stood out for me.
Yeah, they're quite tricky. They're not impossible, hybrid meetings, but they take a little bit of work and care to make them really purposeful and get people really engaged. So yeah, over the years, people have told me it's very much the same thing, lack of agenda and purpose. Some folk maybe being more dominant than others, perhaps to the point of interrupting. Maybe other people not speaking up, either because they lack the opportunity or potentially the confidence, going off topic, people feeling frustrated or excluded. I might have missed this in the list there, but group think. So when the meeting tends to stick to the same kind of thinking rather than make the most of diverse thinking. I don't know whether it's just my experience, but I've seen a lot of meetings, and particularly in the health sector, actually, where agreement is deferred and deferred and deferred. So decisions are not made, they're kind of left to another time, and often really important topics not tackled. So we can see that we might be at risk of having quite an exhausted, even burnt out workforce who are seeing meetings as a painful interruption to the work they're doing, rather than opportunities for the best thinking of innovation and collaboration. So what's the solution? Well, we would argue that we need to think differently about how we design and lead meetings. In fact, we can argue that the quality of anything we do depends on the thinking that we do before we do it. And in meetings, the quality of our thinking depends on the way that we treat each other while we are doing the thinking. So we know sometimes we get lucky in life and we are not interrupted. Now that's luck. I think, I can't remember the precise research, but it's something like 8 seconds is the average period of time in general where we can say something and not be interrupted by somebody else in a more casual environment. You're all being very good here today and you're letting me talk without interruption. But all too often, even in a meeting environment, we get interrupted. And our thinking then is interrupted. So sometimes we get lucky and we aren't interrupted, but to know for sure that you are not going to be, it allows us to think much more clearly and deeply for ourselves. That kind of courtesy during a meeting produces thinking that's bolder, faster, fresher, more independent, actually more rigorous, tougher thinking as well. So for this, we turn to the work of Nancy Klein and her company, Time to Think. I'm one of her trade facilitators in doing this work. And she has identified 10 behaviors. Let me pull them up here. The 10 components of a thinking environment that generates this finest independent thinking. So there are 10. Time will not allow me to go through 10 of these today, but let me explore one of these 10 factors, because I think arguably this is probably the most important of the 10. And it's this: attention. Attention is a skill of at least as much any value as any expertise that requires you to speak. It's extraordinary how much we rely on speaking when actually attention to somebody else's thinking has tremendous value. And it's almost a little bit of a paradox here, because when we give really high quality attention, we matter very deeply, almost because we don't matter, because we are giving all our fascinated attention to somebody else. We are so essential, we are almost irrelevant to their thinking, but they wouldn't be thinking what they are thinking without the focused quality of our attention. So it comes when we listen, not just with, I'm listening to you now so that I can speak later. We are listening because we are genuinely fascinated and interested in where the person could go next in their thinking. So it comes from our courage to trust their own intelligence. This is like a work of art, to create an environment like this for people. So we give respect and attention and relaxation and so on, and extraordinary things happen in people's brains. You know, fresh ideas come up, confusion gets resolved, creativity can explode. So we sit with this curiosity, waiting, an absolute fascination. Where are they going to go next with their thinking? Even if we think we know what they're going to say. We don't interrupt them, we don't stop them, we don't do their thinking for them. We enable them to be really bold and creative in their thinking. And that's just one of the components of a thinking environment. So all well and good, Angela, but what actually happens on these thinking environment trainings? Well, we do a number of things. We learn and practice 4 of what we call the building block applications. These are practical examples of how to get people thinking for themselves, either completely independently or in more collaborative ways. So we call them thinking pairs, dialogue, the thinking rounds, and so on. There's some very discrete techniques that we learn about and we start practicing. But then, this is a clever bit, we learn how to weave them together in such a way that we can hold meetings that enable decisions to be made, not just with the benefit of excellent thinking, but actually more quickly. Because when we're really truly listening to other people, it's extraordinary how much we're not competing with them anymore. We kind of share a generative desire to solve the issue together. So these meetings are so much more powerful. I've worked with people in multiple sectors. I've worked with people in government and education and in the city and so on to run meetings in this way. And it is extraordinary how much better they do business and how transformed the relationships are between them. We have a little extra bonus prize as well on the training. We take you through something called a time to think council, which is a particular methodology when you've got an issue to be resolved and you love to have the benefit of other people's experience, but you don't want their advice. Then we have a cunning little methodology for how you can do that. So, how well does it work in practice? Well, this is some very interesting research. There's quite a lot of it, but I liked the Haver stuff in particular. When we create meetings that are aligned with these 10 components and we use these particular methodologies, well, bless my socks, but people get more confident. Their self-esteem goes up. The quality of their thinking goes up. It feels more democratic because whether or not they're a lifetime expert or whether they're relatively new to the team, they realize that their thinking matters as much as everybody else's. The chairs become more effective. I remember one of the reasons that popped up in chat there was the chairs are not being very effective. That's why the meetings are not effective. Well, the chairs here get much more effective because they've got some good, strong methodologies up their sleeve, and they realize that the answers don't have to come from them. When I used to chair meetings at times, I felt I was doing all the work trying to get the meeting to resolution. Actually, when we use these methodologies, it's much more participative. So because we're benefiting from more diverse thinking, our decisions are stronger, faster, and for all of you who said, there's people are not prepared, there is more structure, more rigor to the meetings. And people soon understand that they need to prepare well for these. We focus on the collective agenda rather than individual ideas. Do you know what? It's pretty much, I know I feel I'm doing a hard sell here, but it's just really, this stuff rocks. It's really strong and powerful methodology. So that essentially is what we do as a day. We learn what a thinking environment is, how to create it. We learn the specific techniques. We call them the building block applications. And then we learn how to weave them together cohesively into a meeting that really achieves what we need to. I can see some good questions coming up here that we will address. First, though, I think it might be good to hear from somebody who has been on the training. So let me just switch to the slide, which is kind of, the outcomes of the course. But Tendai, I think we've got somebody lined up here who has been on our course, has she not?
You are correct in assuming that, Angela. So I'm just going to introduce my colleague, Giselle. Giselle had an experience of going on the transforming meetings, and she just wanted to share experience of how she saw it and her thoughts and improvements after. So we just created a couple of questions that I was going to ask her. And so, Giselle, if you can, to share your experience, what encouraged you to join this training?
Hi, everyone. My name is Giselle, like Tendai explained to you. Thank you for the question, Tendai. Yes. My role as a director, I look after two divisions, which is sales and marketing. And I think my constant work is to see that these collaborations work together, the teams are aligned, and, we have multiple meetings coming up. So we realize that during these meetings, there's an inefficiency of actually, covering the entire agenda. We always overrun timings, like most of you have stated this earlier. We have a lack of clear agendas. People struggle to, reach any kind of actionable decisions. I think these are the common factors that have been stated earlier. I've also noticed that meetings, could have been more productive. We could come to, reach a stage where we could utilize the full potential of my entire team, because this team is very creative. We are into sales, into marketing, into designing, and having them share their thoughts and ideas. Sometimes these meetings used to always lead to a one-way conversation. This is from my experience, what I've done meetings, but on my personal level too, I wanted to kind of develop this leadership skill, more in terms of having this, to be able to equip myself with the tools to facilitate these kind of meetings and, come to a collaborative discussion. And definitely this was more like a win-win situation. So personally, I would develop and obviously start developing the team too.
Thank you for that, Giselle. So that brings me to my follow-up question based off that. How has the training helped you change your idea or practice of meetings?
So like I said before, it was always a one-sided presentation. What I can see now is after I attended the meetings, the training I attended was, I think, end of last year. So it takes time to kind of get those skills into practice. But now what I see is everyone has the opportunity to, get into the thinking side and, come up with like richer discussions. And also the part where, you have people having a chance to voice themselves out. One thing that I learned from this training is that silence in a meeting does not mean disengagement from the topic that we are discussing. It's more about, the importance of that thinking space that is given to people, because pauses normally allow people to have a deeper reflection and also more into having contributions. My team is a mixed bag of people. We have new joinees, we've got experienced people, we've got introverts, we've got extroverts. And most of the time, the people with stronger personalities seem to be steering the conversation. Right now, we see that, everyone feels that their thoughts have been, listened to. They have a feeling of inclusion. And I think it's also the part where they prioritize quality thinking. We don't rush through the points of the agendas that are very clearly sorted. We kind of achieve everything. And when I go to meetings now, the agendas are pretty clear. So everyone's prepared and coming in for a meeting, and everyone knows what they need to contribute and how we can help to, kind of achieve that goal productively. So overall, the training, in fact, for transforming meetings has led to, coming into one is leveraging everyone's potential and also obviously problem solving creatively.
Thank you. One more, if you don't mind. What have you or your peers noticed you do better? What do you think we noticed that you do better?
I think I would say prioritizing or concising the agendas. You don't need to rush through meeting goals or topics, or, you already know what your expected outcomes are when you concise these meetings. It's also helping people, be prepared, keeps them on schedule. You don't have to overrun meetings. You ensure that the meeting concludes on time and without feeling kind of overwhelmed or rushed, or not coming to a decision. And I think the part where everyone, what I've noticed is that everyone feels that feeling of achievement, that I've contributed, I've kind of said something that would make a change. It feels like an engaged outcome. And I think what my peers have noticed is the positive shift in our meetings, which ultimately obviously benefits the entire team's productivity in the end.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Giselle. So just to echo your answers, I just wanted to say that obviously here at CSC, we tend to get the opportunity to jump on most of our training courses, which then allows us to share the experiences with many of our peers, as well as our clients, and as well as our external stakeholders. So thank you very much for sharing your experiences.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So just a few housekeeping from our side before we go into the Q&A sessions. If you can, just use your phone, link the barcode. That's a link to our Transforming Meetings course. We've also shared some dates if you wanted to do face-to-face, as well as virtual options, including the names of my colleagues who will be able to support you with this. If you can as well, to just keep you updated of what we do, as well as the programs we've been working on or any cool projects that we're working on, please just follow us on our LinkedIn profile. You will probably get notifications to go through that, because I think we all tend to use LinkedIn as much as we can. But without further ado, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the questions that have been asked. So we give Angela an opportunity for answering all the questions that everybody has put in the chat box. There's a few, Angela, what I've done, because first of all, thank you everybody for sharing all the questions. There has been a few points that you've picked up there that were almost similar to what everybody was discussing, which things around lack of preparation, things like lack of a good share. But I thought, because you've got those as a blanket, I thought highlight some of the things that I thought were interesting. So if you could touch on hybrid meetings again, that would be great. As well as there was another one which mentioned that sometimes there's a lack of psychological safety. I like that one. So if you can, I don't know if you want to bounce off that, or do you want me to just read out a few here for you?
Well, let me pick up on the point of psychological safety, because that is critical. It's critical to contributing at a meeting. What I used to see in particular, particularly when there's lots of grade disparity or seniority at a meeting. So some people are senior and possibly extroverted, and others may be more introverted or potentially more junior, is that some people take up more oxygen and more space, and they talk more, and others, either because they are not ready to, which is more of an introversion characteristic, I want to think first, or because it doesn't feel safe for them to do so. They think they're going to say something silly or that they won't be respected for doing that. And our work on creating a thinking environment is specifically designed to promote equality in the space as well as diversity. So difference of thinking is not just tolerated, it is welcomed, it is sought after. It is a good thing. And I think so I've seen, I may not have seen all the questions there, but there's questions about how do we get people who are otherwise dominant to just shush?
Yes, but that is one of the questions, Angela. That's correct.
Yes. And we have, a couple of these building block applications are specifically designed about that. It becomes the norm for everybody to have an opportunity to speak on a particular topic. So everybody has that chance. Everybody. We often will combine it with some one-to-one type thinking opportunities prior to that. So people who want to think away from the group have an opportunity to do that as well. And I think somebody mentioned kind of creative, different ways of approaching the meeting. We can zip these little building blocks together to create ways that are going to work optimally for the people we've got at the meeting. Often to begin with, it's a bit like putting on a new pair of pajamas or something. It feels a little bit sort of stiff and this is weird, does this fit? But it does not take long for people to not only see, but feel the benefit of working in this way. And we hear more from the people that we don't generally hear from. And that's incredibly powerful.
Thank you. So the lack of psychological safety, that was Amber. Amber, thank you very much for that. In terms of, I've got another question for you. Meetings that could have been an email, and that was from BL, so thank you for that one. What do you have to say to that?
Meeting, maybe there should be an email then. I think it depends on our purpose for the communication. What is it we want to do with it? Are we handing over a fact? In which case, arguably, maybe the email is the right place for that. Are we looking for compliance with something? Are we telling something? Do we want people to actually get excited about this thing? Do we want their collaboration? Do we want their hearts and minds with it? So I kind of will go back and go, what is our intention in the communication? If it is a one-way radio blast, then I think the thinking environment is not what you want, because you might as well just tell people. If we want them to get involved and connected and to benefit from their thinking and their wisdom and their experience and their insights, then a meeting that's a thinking environment is designed for that.
Thank you for that. So another one for you. Probably this will probably align with the lack of agenda, but I like the way she worded it. Meandering subject matters, and that's from Jennifer.
Meandering subject matters, as though we had all the time in the world to address them. Yeah, something that an approach we take, it's one of the 10 components of a thinking environment, is incisive questions. So we turn agenda items into questions, specific questions that need to be addressed. And that is what we do. So if we are moving and thinking around from people, we are addressing that question. We may even keep repeating that question. So that is what we're sticking with. That really helps with the meandering and the going off topic and excuse me, could I just add here and so on, because we are focused on answering that question. And it may be that question that makes us think of the next question that we must answer, and that's critical. But we often work on answering specific questions, and that tightens the focus of the meeting.
Right. Thank you very much for that one. Another one for you. And this one is from Kim, I think. She says, what about people who are not dominant? It's more that the conversation is just flowing and there's no natural gap for others to speak without overspeaking someone.
That is the value of this process. If we leave meetings to chance, so that people who are naturally dominant or confident, and frankly, folks, I have been that person in the past. I've been the one who goes, yeah, let me do all the talking and I've got lots to say, and inadvertently silencing other people. So we are creating deliberate opportunities. There is a democracy to a thinking environment where everybody's thinking is as important as other people's. To begin with, it may be that people who are used to speaking a lot, A, talk quite a lot when they do speak, and B, may seek to interrupt. But because we are maintaining the integrity of the process of the meeting, they soon learn that that is not how we're doing business here. And it changes the dynamic and it boosts people's self-esteem. And with that boosted self-esteem, people say more, they dare more, they're more courageous in their thinking. Does that answer that question, Tendai?
I think that answers the
It's
question.
a great question. I'm loving these questions.
Well, there's another one actually, which came in, which I like. Mark, similar point to some raised above, but different perspective maybe. And this is based on good cheer, having an agenda, etc. But he states that there is a lot about some personality types that dominate. Any thoughts on neurotypical versus neurodiverse approaches to capture all ways of thinking? I'll repeat that again for you if you want. So
yes, please.
There's a lot about some personality types that dominate. Any thoughts on neurotypical versus neurodiverse approaches to capture all ways of thinking?
Yes, what I really like about running meetings in this way is that it does allow for diversity in how we think. Something that really strikes me, my husband is neurodiverse, and he spent quite a lot of his career masking this. It takes a lot of energy to do this, masking his needs and the way he processed data to try to fit in with neurotypical people around him. And I think he is not, unique in having that experience. So what we can do here, in any case, is flex and adapt, tools, not rules. But what we find is that giving people the airspace that they need to progress their thinking allows them to do that. Whether we are neurotypical or neurodiverse, typically our thinking comes in waves and pauses. We have a wave and then there's a pause. And generally what happens is somebody else comes in and does some talking there. Not in this environment. We know that thinking comes in waves and pauses. And their turn is not done until their turn is done. And this might be particularly helpful with some neurodiverse folk whose thinking may come in waves and pauses that are longer or shorter or different from other people's. They have the security of knowing that the floor is theirs until they signal that they are done.
Brilliant. Any more questions? Please, let's keep them coming. I don't know if I read this one out to you, Angela. So this is from VH, Vanessa. Introverts tend to like to reflect. So it's important where possible to give everyone time to come back with ideas after some time away. I don't know if this was a question, is probably just a suggestion. What else do we have here? So
I agree with her.
Yeah.
And we can build that in with particular processes. Yeah.
This is probably more of a funny gag. This is AA Anderson, and was it Alex? What if it is your boss that interrupts?
Yes, Alex. That's not a surprise, is it? I think who's chairing the meeting? Now, this training is for people who chair meetings, right? So we are looking then to create an environment where these are the rules of engagement, folks. This is how we're going to run this meeting. And because you're the chair and you're in charge, you hold that. I've run meetings like this where somebody like the most senior person in the organisation has done, yes, but can I just come back on that? And I'm gone, no, not yet, not yet. We just hold the environment. We explain it, we hold it, we keep people to it. People get excited. It's not that people are necessarily toxic, although they might be, toxically, deliberately trying to minimize other people's airspace. It's just that they kind of get excited and they want to interrupt. And to begin with, people may try to do that, but it doesn't take very long before the norm gets established. So even if they're your boss, if you're chairing this meeting, it's your rules.
Thank you. Any more questions, people? Let's keep asking. There's nothing irrelevant. I think whilst Angela is here, we might as well pick her brains. If you wanted to explain something over again, we're happy to do that. But let's keep asking the questions. We're happy to answer.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Dean's just come up with one. What's the difference in practice between leading or chairing a meeting and facilitating a meeting? Oh, Dean, what a brilliant question. I think none. I think if we are really doing our job well, that's exactly what we're doing. We are facilitating it. If we think about the word facilitate, to make easy, from the French or possibly from the Latin, I don't know, I didn't learn Latin at school, to make something easy. That's exactly what we're doing if we're an effective chair. My suspicion is that there are a lot of chairs out there who go, I must lead, and that means I need to tell people what I think. There we go, and I have said things and now people are wiser because I have spoken. I kind of see this more as the chair enabling thinking to happen. If you're the kind of chair who is driving forward, A, it's exhausting, and B, you're doing everybody's work for them. By holding back, by holding the space, by facilitating this space, you're enabling people to do their own good work, and they're able to reap the benefits of this. Amber, sorry, I think you missed my question earlier. Oh, sorry. I've
got one more for you. And I've got another.
I can't answer that, I'm afraid, Amber. Sorry. What's that?
I'll come back. Yeah, I'll come back to the other ones for you, but this one is also an interesting one. I think this is from Ismira. In some cultures, meetings may be just a monologue of a boss, and it is difficult to break this tradition. The real discussion among employees is carried out in the lobby or in the kitchen.
Oh, Esmira, you speak truth. Yes. And I would say, what can we change bit by bit, step by step? Now, you may well have a culture overall where that is how meetings are generally run. Well, in your corner of the world, can you run them differently? Can you run them in such a way as it is an environment for people to speak their truth and to flourish and prosper? Let me be very clear. This is not a training course to be at a meeting and magically change it. This is a training course enabling you to design and then chair, facilitate meetings that enable people to think very differently and to get work done faster, deeper, and better. Does that make sense?
Right. If we can, let's see what else I've missed. I'm just making sure I haven't missed anything else, Angela. I don't know if I read this one out to you. How do you encourage participants you don't have the opportunity to engage with regularly to actually take the time to familiarize themselves with materials in advance of key meetings?
Oh, yeah, that's tricky, isn't it? We all know how busy people get. Well, partly, this is a little flippant, but stay with me on this. Partly, if we reduce some of the length of our meetings and get them working really effectively, frees up a little bit of time, right? Frees up a little bit of prep time. Ideally, in our happy space, people come prepared. Now, we can do one of two things. when they don't. One is to behave as though they ought to have been, but that will limit the degree to which they can contribute effectively. The second will be to go, right, I know pragmatically that people are not going to prepare for this, so we will include a degree of key points presentation within the meeting. We will devote a little bit of this meeting to going, okay, what you need to know is this. Now let's create an opportunity for you to go and think about that. I think if you're asking me for the magic wand to make people who are overwhelmed find space in their day, I'm not sure I can do that. But I think depending on the environment, we either make sure that they know how important it is that they are prepared, or, and I do this on training courses, I've kind of mostly given up the fact that people will prepare something in advance. We just do it in the spot. So it's the same with meetings. I would probably go, okay, I need to pragmatically think. What are the key points that people must know if they're going to be able to give their best thinking to this?
So I'm probably going to give you a double whammy. I've got Craig, and it'll probably make sense after I read the second one as well. So Craig says, Angela, how do you balance that let them speak at length versus those dominant speakers who hog all of the oxygen? Second part of that is from Melanie. She says, one thing I've noticed that in some meetings, a certain cohort of people feel the need to comment on every topic on an agenda, and it becomes almost competitive to make a contribution. Do you have to address this sort of behavior so others get a chance to speak? And she then refers to Craig's point above, which I just read first.
Yes. So actually, both points do combine quite well into our process actually is very specifically inviting everybody to speak on every item. We do, the process we use does not invite people to hog the agenda item, but we do embody democracy and equality very deeply into the process that we use. So yes, they will have an opportunity to comment on every single thing, but so will everybody else. And because we are using the skill of deep listening to what people are saying, it's remarkable how quickly it ceases to be a competition and becomes a generative collaboration. So people don't feel the need to hog in the same way that they might have done in meetings that are more kind of more competitive.
Brilliant. Of course, Sarah, what are your top 3 tips for encouraging colleagues to engage in meetings and feel confident to speak up?
One is give them thinking time away from the group. So often when colleagues are reluctant to speak up, as I said before, it may be either, maybe many reasons, but I think I've just lost Ted down there for a second. That's fine. It may be for a couple of very key reasons. One is I'm not ready yet, which is not the same as confidence, but it can look like low engagement. It isn't. They're just doing their thinking prior to speaking, whereas more extroverted people do their thinking while they are speaking. So for that reason, it may be good to have some separate low number paired, for example, thinking time. The same for people who feel less confident. It's much safer to begin with to rehearse your thinking, to start your thinking off with just one other person to be your fascinated witness. And as people get good at this, because they are listening with all their heart and soul and attention, it's like putting a flower in water. So the confidence levels grow because they are being so well listened to. Then it becomes just that little bit more natural in the group to come back and go, and I think this. I would reward people for doing so. I would draw it afterwards, just go, that was great. That was really powerful. What you said was, very truthful or very honest or very helpful. So I haven't been counting, so I'm not quite sure how many tips I'm at the moment, but that's what I would be thinking of, is actually rewarding what we want to see in people. First of all, make it easier. Second of all, reward it. I suspect that's only 2 tips in the end. Can I get away with that? Is that all right, Sarah?
That's what, honestly, you can share as many as you want. I was going to say, another question came in. Let's have a look. Because I thought I was running out of them. Sarah just said many thanks. So, having reflected on every question that we've received, first of all, thank you once again. The overriding general consensus was lack of structure, lack of agenda, lack of preparation, poor chair, engagement with people. But we obviously picked up the more unique ones. We spoke about lack of psychological safety, neurodiversity versus I forgot the other one. But hybrid meetings, and obviously gear for extroverts. Now, what I was going to ask you to do, do you have a question that you want people to think of when they leave us today?
Yeah,
I think that will help them move along and probably digest what we spoke about.
I think it would be primarily about attention. I think I would encourage you in your meetings, whether they are one-to-one meetings or whether they are with bigger numbers, to think, how can I embody fascinated attention with what this person is saying to me? How can I make them feel, in this instance, that they are the most important thing in my world right now? And I am fascinated to hear what comes out of their mouth. I would invite you to ask yourself that in your meetings. Am I doing enough to create an environment where the person who is speaking right now can flourish? And what more could I do? What more could I do to demonstrate my fascination? Genuine, authentic fascination with what they're saying.
Thank you. So, first, thank you everybody for joining us. I'm conscious that everybody's probably going to have to go back to work, but we appreciate the support as always. We'll be monitoring the chat box after the course, even if you have any more questions. I think I've seen another one pop in, or is it a thank you? No, don't worry, Jay, you can know that's fine. Thank you. So if we can, let's just use our barcode if you want to book onto the next courses, as well as look at what we offer in terms of our future webinars and in conversations. So just register there. Like I said, we'll be monitoring the chat box. So if you have any questions that come across that you might think of after a call, please just share them with us, and we'll ask Anita to answer them as much as she can. Everybody will be receiving post-training feedback as well. So just let us know your thoughts about how the webinar went. And please feel free to just go on our YouTube channel, as we will be sharing the link of this webinar there as well. But have a good day, everybody, and a good week. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, folks. All the very best. Thank you for your interest.